Hey everyone, it's your girl Nadine Michelle, and welcome back to Award Tour Talks. Oh my goodness, it's April. Oh, and you guys know what that means. All my people out in the awards world, all my creative excellence folks, which is another name for award managers, basically. But yeah, you guys know it's hot and heavy. The Cannes deadline just passed, and everybody's probably got some extensions going on, and they're busy with their heads down, probably getting no sleep. I commend y'all. I'm saluting y'all. I'm also in the same boat. It's crazy over here at OpenX, but I'm glad you're tuning in for another episode of Award Tour Talks. I have a super fabulous guest, 2024 Ad Age A-list finalist for Diversity and Inclusion Champion. She is also Adweek Top 50. She is Women in Marketing Storytelling and Woman of the Year. She is so many things. She's an advocate. She's a champion for diversity and inclusion. She is host of Mixed Company Podcast. She is beautiful. She is a queen. She is on my show. I want y'all to give a big hand and welcome to Kai Deveraux Lawson. Okay.
Where's she at? Wait a minute. That was nice. Where is she at?
She's right here on the screen.
I want to know her. Thank you. You know, I adore you and your spirit and your vibe. So anytime I could talk to you is like a good day. So yes. Thank you for letting me do this on this Saturday.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm a big advocate and a fan of yours, of course. I've seen your journey grow. I'm mad proud. I'm excited that you're on the show.
I give you a heart like the kids give hearts. That's how the kids give hearts. Thank you.
I'm saying, I remember when we met. It was like 2016. I was at Digitize. I was down there on Hudson. There was some event we met. I can't even remember the event. The many events in advertising.
So much. There was so much going on. Yeah.
Who knows what? It was there on Hudson. And we were like, yeah, I'm getting ready to start this podcast. You know, me and Simeon. I think I already knew Simeon through some other circle. Simeon, I hope I'm not pronouncing his last name wrong. Is it
Coker?
Coker. I'm about to get him related to Frankie Crocker, but it's okay.
You're gonna be the first, TBI.
Shout out to Simeon Croker.
Shout out to Sam.
And you know, I'm like, oh, amazing, great. We were having a great conversation. You were just like foraying, I think, into diversity and inclusion. So I was like, hey, we need to do lunch, and that was that, you know. And then we just kept running into each other from
everywhere.
Like everywhere. Like, well, hello. Well, look who's here. Well, look who's hosting this. Well, look who's on the panel. Okay.
Anytime I needed to see a friendly face, you popped up. I was like, all right, then I'm good. I'm good.
I'm here. I see you. Let's get some drinks. So, so yes, I mean, oh, where do I even start right now? You were recently at Dentsu as their SVP of Diversity and Inclusion, but I really want to pull it back a little bit to tell the people kind of like where you got started. How did you even foray into this arena? Because I know that wasn't your plan. So I guess let's go back a little. You went to Howard University.
Yeah, I was like, you can't even. I mean, there you go.
Hello.
Yes, no, I represent. So I was actually just there this past week. So shout out to Howard University and all of the Bison. I would actually start my story like around that time, my late teens, early 20s. I had no anticipation or no expectation of getting into advertising. I wanted so badly to be in the music industry. I was street teaming and interning for several labels, and I just knew I was going to be leading promotions, somewhere. But as the economy goes, that now that I know that to be true, the economy has its ups and it has its downs, and quite similar to a down like where we've been having the last couple years. When I graduated from school, it was at the almost the peak or a little bit after the peak of the last recession, and wasn't no jobs in music. But the advertising industry, what I know to be true now is, you guys were on the outs of a whole lot of lawsuits, and they were telling folks y'all gotta hire some Black folks.
Yeah.
And one of the recruiters, who's a very, very, very sweet man, at Wonderman, back when it was just Wonderman, before it was Wonderman Thompson ABCDEFG, got a hold of my resume and gave me a call a couple weeks after graduation and was like, hey, so your resume looks cool. Do you want to be a project manager? And I was like, manage? Obviously, I'm a boss. Not knowing what the hell a project manager was.
Very intricate part of advertising. I tell you.
Now that I know it to be true, yes. Once I got into it, I was like, what is this madness? But joining Wonderman as a junior PM was my first role in the industry. And things kind of just took off from there, not necessarily like looking to be a junior PM for the rest of my career, but really just having that focal point of literally like what departments, who are the people, how do things work, all the way from accounting to creative to production. And that back then I was doing print production, like print production teams. I can say I am a wise woman now, because I started when we were still printing things for work.
Exactly. Okay.
And that went on for a few years. So while I was learning the business, I was also learning the politics of the business, and the politics of the business did not sway in my favor. Like, I graduated from school being known as a very smart person, had a hustler spirit and all of these things, but I came into an industry that perceived a lot of the skills that I had as not being smart, as not being respectable, of just not being enough in various ways. And there were various people along my journey to let me know, you are not enough, you are not good, you are lazy, like really being called a lot of things, and things that I didn't identify with personally, because I felt like I was working really hard. And so, very similar to that of the Wu-Tang Clan, like you have these experiences and you get up with a real tight crew. And that was my mixed company podcast crew. Shout out to Simeon and Karina. And, at the time we were having very similar experiences on different angles of the business. Sim coming in as a creative, me coming in through ops, Karina coming in through client services. And it was like, oh, shoot, we don't know each other that well, but we sure do have the same stories. Exactly. Very sister like. And we were like, these happy hours, they don't pay us enough to afford all these happy hours to cope. And so we started just kind of talking about it. And it was Karina's idea to have a podcast. And the minute we turned the microphone on and we pressed record, like we just started sharing our truths, and not just our truths, but the truths as we saw them, not being leaders in agencies. Right. And I think especially at that time, like, the only people that were doing thought leadership were very seasoned, very high level, very, very senior people at agencies. And those were the only voices you were hearing. And so they're telling stories about how great their agencies are and how great the work is and how great they are. But the reality was that's not what was trickling down to those of us actually doing the work on all these awards that people get. And so that's what that is the perspective we came to the table with. And that twisted into people hearing these podcasts and they're like, oh shoot, you sure got a lot to say. You want to come fix it over here?
Right? Mixed Company Podcast. It was a podcast from the perspective, from the point of view of the mid-level employee. Why did you target that demographic exactly?
Because nobody knew us, because nobody cared enough. And I would say that there's a lot of people in business, most people still don't care about what happens in that middle. And that's, that 3 to 5 to 7, even a 10-year journey of your career is really what makes or breaks you. And, you know, people don't think about it, but these are our best earning years. Like, you know, you're not necessarily in your young 20s and you're heading to your 30s, but you're not at your 40s. So you're not like at that age peak. And like, this is where you're going to make enough to survive or not. And there are so many things that go into surviving in this business that go beyond just, you know, how well you did your job, which many of us who don't have families that come from corporate white collar businesses don't know that. We're taught to do your job really well, keep your head down and push forward. And that works against you in so many ways. And so we felt the need and probably even the spite, like, if I'm honest, of like, you can tell me what to say at work, but you can't tell me what to say on this podcast.
Right.
So we're going to say what we want, how we want. We're going to tell our truth as we experience them. And we're going to tell it directly to people who are already empowered to make changes. And so we continue to have a lot of great guests, a lot of very influential guests, and they helped to platform us. And, you know, that was kind of how that took off. And eventually people were like, just come in, and how about you lead inclusion, and how about you join our team? And the reality that we know, there's a reason why we still have these conversations about inclusion.
This is my next thing. Like, listen, we've been talking. Mm-hmm. We've been having panels. Mm-hmm. We have conferences. We have people. It's every year. You know what's coming.
Oh gosh.
You know what?
It's conference.
We have a new one this year. We have a spanking brand new conference. I'm hoping to have somebody from that conference on this podcast, but we have a new one coming out in October called Black Week.
Yep.
It's Black Week.
It's Black Week. It's
listen,
very
you know
nuanced.
What it is.
Very, very nuanced. Black Week.
Black Week.
I heard my name. I heard somebody said my name. I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna be there.
Listen,
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be in the seats. I'm gonna be cheering everybody on.
Don't play. This is it. If you are serious about it, because you weren't before, you need to show up at Black Week, and we're gonna show up. You know we are. It doesn't really matter what the politics are. If you don't agree, if you agree,
none of that matters.
We're showing up. You know what I mean?
You show up and you support, because at the end of the day, we're like, you know, I know you were getting to the point where it's like we're talking. Mm-hmm. The plan has to be that you don't stop talking,
right?
Because like most people would love to not actually have a lot of the conversations as we have them, particularly about race in the business. And so what a strong stance to take, to actually have an event, to have a series that makes you say the thing that everybody has been trying not to say. Like, right. We literally do everything to not say Black. We will say BIPOC, we will say POC, we will say marginalized group, underrepresented, anything not to say Black.
Where they are.
What?
Here they are.
Here they are. There they go. But they're going to be a Black Week.
But this is like, Black Week.
Black Week, you have to say it. You have to acknowledge it. And that's a powerful stance.
All these, like, you're in the trenches still and speaking on it. Do you feel that the conversations are still being had, like you said? Mm-hmm. It's the mission is don't stop talking. It's felt like when everything happened during the pandemic and George Floyd happened, mm-hmm. I remember specifically, I was at Droga 5 and all, you know how the ERGs, as we call them.
Yes, I do know. I'm familiar.
Yes, you are. And we all get to, oh my goodness, we're talking about what happened. You see what just happened. Mm-hmm. And me being a bit jaded was like, nothing's going to happen here. I'm not going to get all myself all tight and upset. Like, this is it. This is the movement. But after a couple of months, and thanks to the pandemic, I was like, you know what? Something is really happening here. They're really paying attention. Mm-hmm. Is this finally happening? You know? And things were shifting. I felt like all this talking, and finally they're paying attention. I didn't realize, well, we're in a pandemic. They have no choice.
They have no choice.
No choice but to listen, and do something, authentically do something. And of course, after
maybe not authentically, but definitely
that's what you want. That's what you're like as a woman of color, someone that's Black in the industry, that's been in the industry for, you're like, something's really happening here. And then it was like this automatic surge. Everybody wanted to hire. Everybody was like, we really want to know where the Black people are. Where are they? Because they need to be in here with us. We need to be listening. At least that's how I felt, I even fell into recruiting because of it, Stop doing awards. And I was like, I'll be a recruiter.
That's where I can make impact.
I'm going to get them all in here. You know what I mean? So I did.
I'll make my impact. Yes.
Exactly. So.
That happened.
Here we are.
And here we are.
Yeah, that happened. Also, what happened?
I mean,
the whole fallback of affirmative action.
And that's what happens, right?
That's what happened.
I was, I was at a conference with a client over this past week, and one of the speakers actually said something that I thought was extremely profound, where she was like, there's supposed to be backlash. It's supposed to roll back because it means you broke it, right? So the systems work the way we work. We've been telling the same truths for decades, right? Nearly a century, if you will, particularly in marketing, advertising, publishing, journalism side of the business, and the communication side of the business. We've been saying the same things, and every time there is progress, there is a rollback, be it politically, be it policy-wise within the workplace. I know now a lot of people are talking about inclusion fatigue, DE&I fatigue, but what she said is like, that's supposed to happen because it's going against how things have been working for so long that it causes a discomfort in people that have supported or people that have benefited from the system as it is. And so when you get the backlash, it's going to hurt. It's going to feel like it's a rollback. But she's like, that's supposed to happen, but you have to keep pushing forward to keep that gap open for other people to come behind and push past that new gap. Because it's a wound, it's a gap to the system. So, and that's why we're all here. We're all talking about 2020, and now everybody's conveniently forgetting. They're not forgetting. It's hard to do something different. Right. And we're demanding people be different.
Exactly. I mean, I guess you're right. It's just like, it almost feels like, we're doing this progress. And they're like, well, wait a minute.
That's exactly what happened. Wait. Well, now
slow back a little bit.
Can we go back to just doing happy hours? Why do we always have to, can we just have parties?
That happy hour, we got you if you feel like getting saucy. But no, you know what I mean? I find it strange how they find funding for the things they want. So even when I was recruiting, just seeing some of the practices, and I felt good about some of the hires that I made. Over 50% of what did they tell me? Over 50% of my hires were people of color. And I was like, of course. I mean, that's why you hired me. Okay.
You were committed. You were committed to what you intended to your intention.
Exactly. And that was the agenda. I'm there to diversify the team. I'm there to give that POV of a person of color, of a Black woman. And even as things, which I found fascinating, you're also dealing with HR things. So after your hire, how do you retain that employee?
Now we have to keep you? You mean we have to change how we've been doing things and like...
Ooh, that's hard. The retention was another like struggle.
The retention was a struggle. The shifting of expectations about how to curate a team of this newly diverse talent. How do you train a team of diverse talent? How do you communicate with a team of diverse talent that are so diverse they don't necessarily come from any spaces that you've ever navigated in? Exactly. And then baby, and this is getting me too, but like, and then we're bringing in younger people who have different expectations of the workplace because of the pandemic, and now, like, yeah, we're trying to whip them into shape and make them work hard and all of these things, and they're like, hold up, but I have a doctor's appointment that I'm not canceling. Like, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah, my mental being is what's important here. You have people like, Simone Biles taking a mental break. This is a priority now. This is not a joke. It's not like before. What happened before?
And it's not like before, I think, because
they demand their rights. Hey, guess what? How many days a week am I in there? Yeah, I can't do that.
I can't do that.
I'm gonna press on. Good luck with yourselves. And it's nothing to it.
I champion it. I am here for it because I'm tired. How I'm 36 looking to retire. I get it. And it is not the way corporate America has worked ever. This is a new way of thinking. When everybody's talking about diverse thought, these kids are bringing in that diverse thought about the value, not just the value of who they are, because that's what this corporate world, agency world requires of us. It's like your value is based on how much effort you put into the work. What younger people are demanding is the value of the value that you're giving me for the resource of my work needs to be equitable. Right. And so, yeah, there's a lot of push and pull, and there's a lot of complaints, and there's a lot of stressful intergenerational engagement happening. But imagine what that's going to look like in 10 years, that the expectation is I only work the days that I said I was going to work. And my family does not just mean my children and my spouse. My family is expansive to pets and friends. Right. And if they are sick or hurt, I'm actually not coming into work. Like, I think there's a lot of good things happening. We're just seeing backlash. We're seeing a lot of angry people who don't like change.
Right. Why do you feel the C-suite and a level above seems not to be penetrated by this? It seems to be a very, of course, guarded arena. Because we can say there are a lot of us here in this arena now. We're deep in advertising. It's not like when we first started, like even when I first started, which is like in the 90s, okay? There were a lot of us, but not the way it is now. We have C-suite level, we have CCOs, we have people leading these brands. But when you look at a person's roster as you go on their site, it's still the same thing. One, maybe. Not even, because they may not even include that C-suite, CCO in the picture.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I think there are many reasons. I'm trying to figure out how candid I want. So I'll be candid in the context of likeness will always beget likeness, right? And the reason why so many systems of power at that leadership, at that executive level look the way they look is literally because there are so many people who do believe like, oh, well, my job is to prioritize the work, the business, and that somehow that is very separate than prioritizing, literally finding the best person for the work outside of your own community, outside of your own network. And so there's also this aesthetic of what it means to look like as a leader, and not just like physically look like, but how do you behave? What do you care about? What are your values? That your values and the things that you care about and the way you approach leadership is going to be different, also based on how you look, also based on where you're from, also based on how much money you come from. And there are a lot of people in this executive level who will look at other people who don't share those same values of work before family, who don't share the same values of I'm a yes man and that is how I'm going to get business. And they'll look at other people and say, you don't present as an executive because you don't do things and you don't lead in the way I lead. And so that must mean that you're not a leader. And I've seen that happen. I've seen somebody, in my network who was a VP at a place for like 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 6 weeks they were there. And in those 6 weeks, they were let go because, well, this person didn't present as an executive. And it was like, why didn't they present as an executive? Well, they were taking notes in a meeting with the CMO. And it's like, what are you like? What does that even mean?
What is that?
What does that even mean? And it's like, it means that there's a deeper root than that, but you can't say it because you know it's wrong. And so, that's why it's not penetrated, because there's a line about if I'm an executive and this is what executiveship looks like, you have to look and act and behave like me. If you don't, you are not an executive. And so I either won't hire you or I won't keep your tenure long enough to make impact and bring more people in.
Right.
It is a fraternity of people.
Yeah.
And likeness begets likeness. That is how that works.
It is. It definitely is. I mean, and then there's no like, let's say you do bring in this person and there's no commitment to like, let's go into training. Here's what this looks like. And here's like, because you're on another level. As you expand to that new level, you may not know what's required there.
Yeah.
So where's the commitment and the funding for that training? Because it's there. It's training for them as well, but it's interesting to just, or we could talk about this whole situation all day long,
all day.
All day, and it'll never end. It's a continuous conversation.
I mean, you say something and I'll let it go because you're right. We could talk about it forever, but you're like, where's this commitment to training? There are people in this business who are committed to building better environments for people to work in. And those people as leaders are loved, admired, and respected by the people that report into them. Unfortunately, there's not enough of those people because
Right.
there are other people who are still of the minds that this is a business of commerce. This is a business of money. And by any means necessary, we will hit that bottom line.
Right.
And oftentimes investing in the development and the talent of your people who do the work that make the money, it is not necessarily more cost effective, but it is easier to just get rid of people who don't do things the way I want them to be done than it is to develop and train people to do things the way they should be done. And I think that is where that investment of training goes. I don't have time to care. And so if it's not being done now, you cannot be here.
Right. Exactly. And it takes a lot to even get into that room, the barriers that are put up, the fact that, oh, well, you don't have a portfolio and you need to go to this certain school and be
why is it only spec work in your book? It's only spec work in my book because no one's given me an opportunity.
Exactly. Like these are odd questions, about the spec work. I'm like, well, they're just coming out of college. What do you expect them to have like an award-winning book?
Yes.
They do. They want to see, like, for example, Miami Ad School is not something every person can afford. It's quite expensive to attend. And sometimes by the time you find out, which is something I found out from Where Are All the Black People, by the time someone is in their third or about to graduate and they find out this isn't a traditional portfolio, you are not going to get work in the creative department with this portfolio because you didn't go to a portfolio school, right? So they're like, what are you talking about? Well, if you go look at these programs and you see how much it costs, they're like, well, I'm not going to pay that. It's too late for me to get into creative. I guess I'll be media, account management, anything else, strategist.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get into that creative department. But then we've seen the pop up of all these amazing schools outside of Miami Ad School. There's Creative Circus. Where's the other one that just got revived back? And McKinney and ECU are gotten together and brought it back.
Yeah, and those areas are amazing and absolutely worth it if you can go that avenue. But let's keep in mind how many people don't go to portfolio school and still get opportunities because somebody saw something in them that really resonated with something in themselves and said, I'm going to give you a shot.
Right.
And think about all the people that you've given a very fair, flexible, and equitable shot to. Not everybody can say that they give everybody a shot.
Right.
So there's that.
There is that. Well, let's veer a little bit.
Okay.
let's talk about your mixed company podcast.
Please.
And things. It's fabulous. It really you and your host, you just hit the nail always, and you're not afraid to discuss openly like what the situation is. There's no hiding behind it. You kind of bring people to task. Have you gotten I guess the word is like, have you gotten a backlash for your honesty in the things that you say?
Not from the podcast. And I think that's what I've always found interesting. And also, who knows, maybe down the road, right? I think what both Simeon and I have found, and Karina, our one of our original hosts when we were 3, is that the honesty on the podcast has not become a challenge. It's the fact that the honesty goes beyond the podcast. Like, there are times where I think a lot of people in the industry and people in spaces and people that we've all worked with did not know that who we present ourselves to be on the show is exactly who we are in real life. And for me, that's the beautiful aspect, is that when we started the show, it was literally to say the things that other people wouldn't in mixed company. That was our tagline. And that was our tagline because that is who we all were as individuals as well. Standard 8 Mile psychology, right? If I tell the truth about myself, how can you tell me about myself? If I've already put the things out there, this is what I believe, this is who I am, this is how I see the world, this is how I see the industry, this is how I see creativity, this is how I see work. I've already told you what to expect. There's not a lot of people who can say that about themselves. A lot of people do self-censor to, to get along, but we genuinely needed change just for ourselves to be able to survive and sustain in this business. And so we have been very vulnerable about our disappointments and our expectations of others that we are engaging in this business of, whether it's a brand, a person, an agency, or beyond. And they love it when it's on the show, I guess, because it's entertainment. But this isn't wrestling. Like, if I said it on the show, I meant it in real life too. If I say I expect this, I expect a shift. If you want to partner or work with any of us, we're going to demand the same level of honesty and vulnerability and change person to person that we would on the show as we talk about. It's not just air. We're not gassing anybody. We're very real about it. And so that's what's been different. I also don't think people listen to long form podcasts. Like, we're still in that 20-second clip. So because we don't put like the real stuff on the TikTok or the Instagram, I think they sometimes think it's just the jokes that make it to Instagram.
Right.
But the content is real.
Yeah. No, the content is very real.
If we said it, we meant it.
Yeah. Right now, as you see it, we're in 2024. You were just you're a finalist for Ad Age A-List Creativity. Congratulations again, for diversity and inclusion champion.
Thank you.
Okay, you're a champion.
A champion.
And which is formerly of Dentsu.
Formerly.
How do you feel? Well, there's always going to be diversity and inclusion now. There's no like backtracking it. But what do you feel the future is for it right now?
I think we are in very uncomfortable times. There are so many things happening at the same time in terms of politically how the globe, not just the US, but how the world is moving, in terms of economically how things are shifting, and in terms of how people view themselves and the world around them and their communities. And so the accountability that people promised in 2020, what we are seeing with the reversal of a lot of that accountability, the reversal of a lot of that transparency, the reversal of a lot of those policies in the name of, we lost a lot of money the last couple of years, we have to make it back up. What I see happening forward are a lot more people publicly challenging leaders, businesses, points of view, perspectives, even a lot of the awards that people will be getting in the next couple of months. I do see that being challenged. And I see that being challenged because what's different today in 2024 than the way things were when we started the podcast in 2016 is that more people have access to their own platforms in the industry. There are more podcasters. There are more TikTok influencers who talk about working in the business. There are more bloggers. There are more thought leaders in our industry that are not necessarily tied to executive seats. And so I anticipate there being a lot more voices coming to the table to challenge what's going on. And I love it. I love it because it validates what we've all been saying for years, right? Like, you can't just start an employee resource group and think that you've cured the diversity challenges in your organization. And you can't just leave all of the work to your employee resource group to shift the culture of your agency. And I am looking forward to all of the new voices, all of the new platforms, all of the new conferences, all of the new thought leaders that are going to challenge what we all know to be performative inclusion and call for better. You know, Simeon has been saying this thing behind the scenes that I think is brilliant. He's like, there's not enough shame in the world anymore.
No.
And I think that there is a level of shame that moved people to action in 2020. And so through that accountability or shame or whatever you want to call it, that I think will be on the uptick as more people become disenfranchised just by way of how the world is moving right now, is going to force more leaders over time to really reconcile their activities, their outward activities, with the things that they've said over the years. Because you can't say you're an inclusion champion if you go out of your way to support systems and policies that have continuously, up until 2020 and beyond, kept a lot of people out of the business. You have to change, or you have to get called out. All of those ism names that everybody worked so hard in 2020 to say, that's not me. I don't believe in that. That's not how I am. Well, now a lot of people are going to expect that you prove it.
Exactly. I mean, it's being like pushed to the front by so many different platforms. Like, I remember when I was at CultureCon last year, and was it American Express?
I know exactly where you were going.
And she comes in, and you can see, like, she is, a person of color, definitely, but she pronounces Eastern names wrong like so many times, so many times she mispronounces her name. And then the audience, like you said, this generation, they're not having it.
Care.
They called her out. Listen, if this was 10, 15 years ago, that might have not happened.
You would have whispered.
Like, let her keep going. They would have whispered, but they called her out. And she was so defensive, like, I'm one of you. What are you talking about?
But I think that that's the beauty of the point, right? Because a lot of people think that, well, I'm a woman, so I understand inclusion, or I'm a person of color, so I understand inclusion. Are you as a woman? Are you as a person of color? Are you as a person who's differently abled? Are you as a person who has experienced any kind of oppression of your own in your past? Do you respect other people enough to give them the visibility and the acknowledgement that they deserve, to really show that even you are beyond these systems that can continuously hold people back? It's not about, oh, I'm a woman, so I can't be, or I'm a person of color, so I can't be. It is, are you a person of integrity who is willing to respect other people enough to make this business more inclusive? So I'm gonna go to great lengths to make sure I pronounce your name right.
Exactly.
I'm going to go to great lengths and make sure that I give you a real interview, or that after your interview as recruitment, after your interview, I call you back to at least give you enough dignity to say, hey, we've decided to move with somebody else instead of ghosting you. there are too many people with access to social media and who show up to these panels who are going to call you out. And so I don't know that the change is going to happen more quickly, but the shaming will be big. The shaming will be loud.
It was big. And I go, no one told her how to pronounce this woman's name. She's been in the industry for quite some time. And not only that, it's been a point of how her name has been mispronounced so many times. So
I heard that there was a briefing.
Oh, okay. Maybe she was nervous. I don't want to make excuses.
Perhaps.
You know what I mean? But she could have been nervous, but she kept saying it's a, and I'm like, okay, no.
It's a not her name. It's a not.
That was like the meme. Maybe you thought, I don't know,
you thought you were,
but yeah, I loved it. I was like, oh, hello. Look at this room is not having it. You know,
hold people accountable regardless of what they look like.
Listen, you gotta do this. When we first got on here, I was like, let me make sure I'm pronouncing it. It is Kai, right? I have been messing up all these years, have I?
And you and I have a relationship, and you still asked, and I do the same thing. But you have to have a certain level of respect for someone to give not just them, but yourself enough grace to say, if I am moving in the wrong direction, can you please correct me? Can you please tell me what you need? We need more of that in the business.
Really simple. It's really simple. Well, we're going to move in a little lighter conversation. We're going to go into advertising. Why not? You know what I mean? One of the things I always ask my guests is, what are two of your most favorite spots?
So my favorite recent spots have been State Farm and their Jake from State Farm franchise. I'm gonna call it a franchise because there was definitely an Aunt Viv moment over the years where we went from Jake from State Farm in the khakis, who was is a white man, to the most recent Jake from State Farm, who's out here balling with the basketball players and all of these things, who is Black Jake, right? However, for me, it's been a seamless shift. Not that I didn't notice that they were different guys, but just the personality and the storylining and the humor that has gone along over the years with State Farm and how they have created the Jake from State Farms. I think even, of course, I'm forgetting his name, but one of the basketball players used to play for the Clippers and now he's on the Suns. I can't remember his name right now, was also a Jake of sorts from State Farm. And so for me, I love it. I will always watch it. I think the humor is always there. The nuance is always there. Like, may we never forget that initial, who are you on the phone with? Right. Jake from State Farm. Right. What are you wearing? Jake from State Farm. It's
exactly.
like
khakis?
I'm not trying to take your man. I'm trying to fix your car. Like, what's going on?
Exactly. And she's like, she sounds hideous.
She sounds hideous.
Like, because it's a he. So, okay. But brilliant. It was simple. Brilliant. Anybody could relate to that, especially a wife. Your husband's downstairs whispering on the phone, like, oh.
In an age of housewives and Love and Hip Hop and all of these reality shows, I thought that was brilliant. But the arc of that over the years of just like all of these different variations of Jake, you meet us. If you've ever met a man named Jake, do you not think to yourself, are you Jake from State Farm?
Exactly.
So for
they
me,
even had them together in a one commercial, like transitioning both Jake's with the khaki and Black Jake.
I'm gonna give the agency a free idea. They definitely need to remake the Spider-Man pointing scene with all the Jakes from State Farms, because that's literally like what I think about every time I see it. So State Farm spots have been my favorite over the years, for sure.
It's crazy because like I don't know exactly where it started, but like insurance companies have just been brilliant in their writing, like Progressive, Flow from Progressive, and that amazing long-term storyline. It's been like more than a decade. I think it's been at least more than a decade with Flow and her whole entourage. They even expanded on each character's story at
They
times.
have.
You know?
They have.
Which is great.
I mean, even Progressive. I mean, I know Progressive has even like, and that's Flow. They, you know, they did their remake or their homage. They paid homage to House Party. Shout out to the good folks at VML who worked on that. We see you.
Yes, Walter. I see you.
We see
Black Week.
We see right Black Week. But yeah, I think insurance commercials are great, but that's State Farm, that Jake from State Farm. Do not introduce me to any person named Jake, because I'm gonna ask you if you are Jake from State Farm and where are your khakis. I need to know.
And what is number 2? I'm definitely interested to hear this.
So it's not a number 2 like a second, but it's the spot. It's the first spot that I ever remember in my life being like, wow, this is dope. And while at the time I didn't think that it would be like a wow, this is dope, I'm going to end up in advertising, it was definitely a wow, this is dope, I think I want to get into music. And so it's the 1999, the 5 Deadly Venom Sprite commercial with Eve and Angie Martinez and Mia X and Emil and Roxanne Shante and all of these dope rap women who were just spitting bars, and they looked fire, and they were coming out like these dope Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon like movie characters. And I was like, I need to get to the next episode. And it was episodic because they're, everybody had their own, and you had to wait over time to see them. And I think even at the time, Mountain Dew was also doing some work with Busta Rhymes that was very similar. But it was, it's the 90s. So this is when hip hop was starting to become really mainstream. And so now people that I had to either turn on BET to see, or open up the Source to see, or listen to Power 99 in Philly or Hot 97 in New York to listen to, I'm now seeing them on commercials on ABC. I'm now seeing them on commercials on MTV. I'm able to talk to my, grew up in the suburbs. I'm able to talk to my school friend. Like, who Eve is?
Right.
Wow.
Exactly. And
So
I felt like we were definitely in the room when that was being developed. Like, one of us was in there.
That was clear. That was clear. It was clear. And the nuance about it is like why you would think, we were in the room when that happened is the precision of the lyrics that the women were rapping. Like, it came across like a freestyle, but obviously it wasn't a freestyle, but like it came across in a cadence and in a way and with delivery that was very hip hop. Not just rap, not just somebody who listens to it in passing, but like a lover of hip hop, a lover of women in hip hop, because even that, there's a nuance in that, was in the room when that was made. And to this day, I'm a grown lady. To this day, I still think about those spots.
Yeah. And the fact that, and it has to do a lot with hip hop, and we could talk about that some other time, but like, you referenced the 5 Deadly Venoms. From our era, as a person of color, even like that's my era, kung fu flicks, period. Like I remember when they were like on 42nd Street before Disney got into 42nd Street, how you would go see those kung fu flicks. They would come on TV as well on at that time, it's not Fox, it wasn't Fox, but it was Channel 5. And after you saw a kung fu flick, you was all on the subway thinking you was karateing people and
in your slippers,
hurting yourself, messing up your mother's living room, all that good stuff. So when they put that together,
so dope.
It was just so dope. That's how you knew it was so authentic, and they just combined the two together, because we're always referencing kung fu. We had Wu-Tang out at that time too. That was solidifying, just the fusion of that culture and what it means to us. So you knew they got it. They knew what they were doing. So I definitely agree with that. Shout out to Sprite too, because they continue to like kind of evolve that whole topic of hip hop, and they keep like paying homage to it. They did a great job.
They do
with this Icons Delight, with their 50th anniversary, with new hip hop versus old hip hop, with Rakim and things. So love to Majority. That's the agency that did that one.
Majority.
Majority doing big things, and they did the Sprite Hip Hop 50th anniversary joint, Icon's Delight. So yes, so fantastic, loving it.
Yeah.
So Kai, you know, I could talk to you forever, but as you say, you know, people aren't always into long form, but
we don't read and we don't listen. That's why we're not communicating these days. We don't read and we don't listen.
I think there is a demographic that still does things like that. Like you were saying, how you would be in print production. How there's no more print production going on per se, but from an award standpoint, and what I'm seeing is like there's still that artistry, that love for those items. It's not going to go away per se. It's just evolving into something else. Like, you know, magazines aren't like the way they were when we were like buying magazines. There's no like Excel and all that good stuff. You'd be like, oh my god, the new magazine.
Couldn't wait to go to the grocery store to get my stack of magazines and rip out pages and put on my wall.
Exactly. I still love that. I mean, I still love that old school, I guess it's called old school now, way of doing things. And you know, I'm still encouraging people, like, you should do a radio spot.
And then it's like, what's a radio?
You know, it's like when you're listening to the radio and a commercial comes on. There's no commercials on mine. I'm just confused, you know.
Why are these people talking over your music?
Or even print spots like Cannes this year, while you know everyone's doing a lot of AI and you know all this, you know, AR generated work. They're like, we love some dynamic print, and I'm like, what? Like a print ad, like paper? Like yes,
like paper.
Oh,
like
okay.
Paper.
Let my team know, you know. So those things are still evolving and they're still existing. So they haven't like, you know, gone away or anything like that. But I'm so grateful that you've come to the show. This is just a first, of course. I want to have you back so many times to talk about what's happening in the industry. But I'm so excited for you. One thing before I let you go, like, what can we expect next from Kai Devereux? I have to say it like that.
Yes, you do.
The champagne is burnt.
The champagne is burnt, and the caviar is frozen. Shout out to Diane Carroll for giving my mother inspiration to give me that name.
Fabulous.
So what's next for me? So I have been working and consulting independently for quite a few months. I guess 7 months now, 6-7 months now. And so there's more to come on that. But what it means that if you are interested in genuinely moving your creative, your work, your team, your business practices forward in a more innovative way, that genuinely centers inclusion, and you don't want your other leaders all in the videos turning back time before 2020, then I would say hit me up. I've got a few things that I'm hoping to announce later in the year in terms of what this independent working actually looks like for me and how other people can be involved. But until then, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can hit me there. You guys can always catch me on the social medias at My Life of Kai. And you can keep up with me there to see what's going on.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys, you've heard where she's going. You heard that she's offering some services. Take a look. She can really change the dynamic of your company and have you really looking at what diversity really means and how to input these changes into your practices in life. So please look her up. And thanks for coming to the show. What's next? Let's see. You're gonna have to tune in. Thanks to everybody for subscribing to my YouTube channel as well. Definitely. Shout out to Logic, my producer. I love you. Shout out to Ubiquitous Worldwide, handling social media. Kamari Pope, thank you so much. Shout out to Government Official, always giving me advice and guidance. Loving everybody. I'll see you guys on the next show. Thanks for tuning in.